The Book of Ether really is filled with such rich history and some pretty incredible prophecies.
Absolutely.
Many of which I think can have a profound impact on us today.
For sure. So for those tuning in who might need just a quick refresher,
Right?
the prophet Ether was the last prophet of the Jaredites,
That's right.
a people who came to the American continent
Right.
long before the Nephites. His writings found in the Book of Ether chronicle the events that led to their civilization's downfall.
It's a fascinating story.
It really is. And they contain some truly remarkable insights
Yeah.
into God's plan.
I think one of the most significant aspects of Ether's prophecies is his vision of the New Jerusalem.
Oh, for sure.
In Ether chapter 13, verses 3 and 4, we read, "And he saw the days of Christ, and he spake concerning a New Jerusalem upon this land.
Wow.
And he spake also concerning the house of Israel and the Jerusalem from whence Lehi should come."
He clearly saw the establishment of a sacred city right here in America.
He did. He saw it so clearly.
It's amazing, isn't it? He's speaking about events that would take place centuries after his own time.
Yeah, it really is remarkable.
And what's even more striking, I think, is the emphasis he places on the significance of this land.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In verse 2, he calls America a choice land above all other lands, a chosen land of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just a random location.
No, not at all.
It's a land chosen by God for a specific purpose.
I think it really underscores the sacred responsibility we have as inhabitants of this land.
It does. It really does.
To fully grasp the concept of the New Jerusalem, it's important to understand how it differs from the rebuilding of the Old Jerusalem in Israel.
Right.
Ether prophesies about both cities, emphasizing their distinct roles.
Okay.
In verse 5, he states, "Behold, this is the land that is set apart for a remnant of the seed of Joseph, upon which I will raise up a holy city unto the Lord as a new Jerusalem." He then clarifies in verse 6, "Wherefore, for this cause that my covenants may be fulfilled, which I have made unto the children of men, that I will give unto them this land for their inheritance."
So we can see how he's drawing a distinction between the two cities.
Exactly.
The old Jerusalem, though destroyed, would be rebuilt
Yes.
and become a holy city.
Right.
But a separate new Jerusalem would arise on the American continent.
That's right. Two holy cities, each playing a crucial role in God's plan for his people.
Absolutely. What I find particularly intriguing is the connection Ether makes between the New Jerusalem and the remnant of the seed of Joseph,
Oh, yeah.
which is mentioned in verse 6.
Yeah, that connection is crucial. He's talking about the descendants of the biblical Joseph who were led to the Americas.
Okay.
He even draws a parallel to Joseph bringing his father down to Egypt in verse 7, saying, "For behold, this is a land which is choice above all other lands. Wherefore he that shall possess it shall serve God, or shall be swept off. For it is the everlasting decree of God.
Mm-hmm.
And it is not for the Gentiles only, but it is for the house of Israel."
So he's highlighting how God's plan unfolds across generations.
It does.
And even continents.
Yeah.
It's a story of gathering and establishing a righteous lineage in a new land, just as Joseph did in Egypt.
Exactly. And I think it's a reminder that we are part of a larger narrative
For sure.
that spans centuries.
Sadly, despite these incredible prophecies, the Jaredites, as you mentioned earlier, ultimately reject Ether's words and warnings,
They do.
leading to some devastating consequences,
Sadly.
including a terrible war that consumes their entire civilization. We see this begin to unfold in verses 15 and 16.
It's heartbreaking, despite Ether's prophecies and despite being given the opportunity to change their course.
Yeah,
They choose to pursue their own desires, which sadly leads to their destruction.
it's tragic. So tell us what ultimately led to their downfall. Was it just one big decision, or was it more of a gradual decline?
Well, their story highlights a number of factors that contributed to their demise.
Okay.
First and foremost, we see a consistent rejection of God's prophets and their warnings, which proved to be fatal. Time and again, they ignored the counsel of those who were trying to guide them toward righteousness.
Yeah, it sounds like that disregard for divine guidance really opened the door for a lot of other destructive forces to take hold.
That's precisely what we see.
Wow. Okay, so tell us more about that.
Pride and ambition consumed their leaders,
Yeah.
fueling a cycle of violence and revenge that
Yeah.
ultimately consumed them all. They allowed greed, selfishness, and a lust for power to take root in their hearts, and that corruption spread throughout their entire society. It's a classic tale of a people who lost their way,
Right.
succumbing to the very forces that promised them power and prosperity.
It's a stark reminder that those things never truly deliver on their promises.
You're absolutely right. Now, if we look closely at Ether chapter 13, verses 15 through 32,
Okay.
we see this downward spiral unfold in detail.
Would you mind reading those verses for us?
Certainly, starting with verse 15. And it came to pass that the Lord said unto Ether, Go and prophesy unto this people, that if they will repent, I will spare them, and they shall have peace upon the face of this land.
Okay.
But if they will not repent, I will utterly destroy them from off the face of this land, for I will stretch forth my hand and smite them, and shall visit them in my fierce anger, and there shall be those from other lands who shall scourge them, yea, even until they shall be utterly destroyed.
Wow.
For because of the sins of their fathers and of the sins of the heads of their fathers hath this curse come upon them, and also by reason of their iniquities. And all this will I do because of their whoredoms and their secret abominations.
Okay.
And it came to pass that Ether did go forth and prophesy unto the people, for he spake unto them in the valley of Ramah and in the plains thereof, and also in the land among the mountains, and on the east of the land and upon the west thereof, and also in the land of Korihor and the land northward. And he cried from the mountains and upon the hills and in the valleys, yea, he spake unto them as a voice of thunder, and they did tremble afore him, and he did rebuke them in every place. But it came to pass that they were angry because of his words. For he spake the words of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And they swore in their wrath that if it were possible, they would slay him with the sword.
Oh, no.
And it came to pass that when Ether saw that they sought his life, that he fled from before them and hid again in the cavity of a rock by day and by night, he went forth viewing the things which should come upon the people.
So he's in hiding.
Yeah. And as he dwelt in the cavity of a rock, he made the remainder of this record, viewing the destructions which came upon the people by night.
Mm.
And it came to pass that in that same year that they had sought the life of Ether, Coriantumr was appointed king over the land.
Okay.
And it came to pass that in the 2nd year of the reign of Coriantumr, that he was drunk with wine, and in his drunkenness he slew, shared the brother of him who had sought the life of Ether. And it came to pass that the brother of Shared, whose name was Gilead, went up to the house of the king and slew Coriantumr as he sat upon his throne, and placed his brother Shared upon the throne. And it came to pass that Shared reigned in his stead.
Right.
And it came to pass that he did that which was good in the sight of the Lord, and he reigned over the people 49 years.
Okay.
And it came to pass that he gave battle unto the people who sought the life of Ether, and he did beat them and drove them out of the land.
Interesting.
And it came to pass that he begat sons and daughters, and they became exceeding fair, wherefore it came to pass that many people left their flocks and their herds and their substance, and came and joined Shared, that they might dwell in the land.
Okay.
And it came to pass that Shared did give battle unto those who had come out of the land, Korihor, and they did gather themselves together in great numbers in the valley of Gilgal, and the battle became exceeding sore.
Yep.
And it came to pass that Shared, being sore wounded, did faint. And the people of Shared were scattered and fled, and they were chased until they were smitten and driven before the people of Coriantumr.
So it sounds like things are not going well.
Yeah, not at all. And it came to pass that all his people were taken, and he himself and all his sons and his daughters. Now the people of Coriantumr did rejoice exceedingly, for they were in hopes to obtain the kingdom again. But it came to pass that Shared gathered together his men and also the people of Coriantumr in a number exceeding great.
Okay.
And he came upon Coriantumr by night, and slew him, and took his kingdom, and reigned in his stead.
Right.
And it came to pass that there began to be a war upon all the face of the land, every man with his band fighting for that which he desired.
Okay.
And it came to pass that they did yield up unto Coriantumr according to his desires, and he was appointed king over them, and he dwelt in the land of Nehor. And it came to pass that he did gather together his people, that he might give battle unto Shared, who had taken the land of Moron.
Thank you for sharing that with us. It's hard not to feel a sense of dread.
Yeah.
As we listen to those events unfold, the warnings are clear.
Right.
The consequences are laid out.
Absolutely.
And yet they still choose to go down a path of destruction.
It's a powerful reminder of the devastating effects of sin.
It really is.
And how it can gradually erode even the most prosperous of societies.
Yeah.
They had everything they needed to thrive, but their choices ultimately led to their downfall.
It almost seems like a runaway train, doesn't it? Like once they started down that path, it was almost impossible to turn back.
That's a great analogy. You see, rejecting God's prophets and giving in to pride and ambition had a ripple effect.
Oh, for sure.
It poisoned their hearts, their families, and their entire society. What started as seemingly small choices ultimately led to a complete societal collapse.
It's heartbreaking to see how the choices of a few can impact so many. Their civilization was literally crumbling around them.
It really is heartbreaking. And that brings us to the final chapters of the Jaredite saga. where we witness the tragic culmination of their choices, the Book of Ether doesn't shy away from depicting the brutal realities of their demise.
Right.
It's a stark and sobering account of the consequences of rejecting God's ways.
As we approach the final chapter of the Jaredite story,
Yeah.
what does their ultimate demise look like?
Well, after years of escalating violence and societal decay,
Right.
the Jaredites are reduced to a mere handful of survivors.
Wow.
And at the heart of this final confrontation is Coriantumr himself.
Okay.
Clinging to power, refusing to repent, even as his world crumbles around him, he faces off against his last remaining rival, a man named Shiz,
Right.
in a final desperate battle.
So this is it, the final showdown.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this last battle?
Well, the details are brief but chilling. The Book of Mormon doesn't go into great detail about the actual fighting, but it does tell us that Coriantumr and Shiz fought until they were both mortally wounded.
And with their deaths, an entire civilization comes to an end. It's hard to comprehend the scale of the tragedy.
It really is. And it's a stark reminder that our choices have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for generations to come.
But even in their destruction, God's plan continues to unfold, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Ether 13.21 gives us a glimpse into Coriantumr's fate. The Lord tells Ether that Coriantumr will live to see the fulfillment of prophecies regarding another people inheriting the land. He'll be given a burial by them while every other Jaredite soul will be destroyed.
So even in his defeat, Coriantumr serves as a witness to the fulfillment of God's plan.
Exactly. It's a poignant reminder that even amidst destruction, God's purposes continue to move forward.
Wow, what a thought-provoking message. It's been a really enlightening discussion. Thanks for sharing your insights on this complex and impactful book.
You're very welcome.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the Book of Ether. We hope you found it insightful. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more discussions like this, where we'll continue to explore the scriptures and their relevance to our lives.